All right, traders, Merry Christmas and welcome to the end of day recap for the Tribeca Trade Group. And it is the day after Christmas. It's the 26th. What a huge day in the markets today. S&P was up five and this is S&P futures that I've got in front, retracing a lot of these big moves. And whew, I mean, what a move in volatility. Sorry, not in volatility, but just in price action, up 5.4%. Just in regard, just overall, when I say volatility, I just mean the moves that we are seeing recently. Just incredible. 5.4, 5.5%. You can see futures are still ticking there. But the Qs, my goodness, the Qs were up over 6%. This was the biggest move since March 10th of 2009. So, going all the way back there, and, that's when I used to trade institutionally. And, at the end of the day, I remember those days. You would get to the end of the day and you were just like, holy cow. And that's kind of like the feeling that you got today. If you look, also IWM was up 4.8% today. Just a huge amount of performance. What I like to do and I've set up this chart, this spreadsheet where I've been calculating the percentage change from the open. So not just the overall change of the day, but the percentage change from the open, just in case you didn't put on any trades coming into the day. Look at the performance. So what this tells me, I did a lot of tweeting today because there was just a lot of stuff to talk about. But what this tells me and why I keep tweeting this stuff out is because if you're good at day trading and just basically good at just setting up alerts and just kind of following the trend for the day, I mean, granted, not even talking about the trend on a daily chart or on a weekly chart, but if you just kind of simplify your trading a little bit and try to kind of stay away from the noise that's constantly on the news wires and just kind of just watch the price action. There's a decent amount of things that you can do without actually carrying any positions overnight. And it's been a long time since we've seen this. And, some of the things that I talked about pre-market was just the move that we're seeing, simplifying it down even another step and saying you don't necessarily even need to pick single stocks. Right now, when the volatility is where it is, above 30, and granted the VIX was down, 15%. I'll look at the VIX charts in a second, and I'll go through some charts in a second, but just wanted to make this point. With the VIX, still above 30, even though it was at 30, it hit 36.20. It hit a high of the day, took out yesterday's high at 36.20, and basically started to move down thereafter. But with the VIX around 30, it is so hard to pick single stocks. It's because what happens is the correlations tend to move higher when volatility increases. But that being said, going back to, if you look at the even if you didn't take anything in the beginning of the day, I was long Qs from last week, so I had a pretty good day. But it moved 5% today. Any one of these, indices. So forget about single stocks just for a minute and look at what you could have done just by purchasing, Q SPY. So these are the adjustments and tweaks that I was talking about last night. I kind of sent a whole bunch of things out on Twitter about a little bit about strategy, but adjustment and tweaks when the market moves like this, to me, there's plenty of opportunity just playing the indices or even sectors. I mean, the sector moves. This is one of the signals that we saw today that was a little bit different. Was oil kind of stayed bid today. Oil, I think, also finished on the highs, went out on the closing of the futures at the highs. But look at the XOP. That's the whole sector was up 8.5%. The FANG ETF was up 5.8%. Technology just alone, if you didn't want to be that specific, also up 5% on the day. Biotech ripped as well. Just the amount of sectors that were up over 4%. Even the industrials were up over 4% today. The banks finished up. Single stocks, if you wanted to go that route and trade some of the names that a lot of people day trade, but Netflix was up. Looks like Netflix was the winner from, again, this is not the total percentage change, but just from the open, Netflix ripped up 8.4%. I had some Google on. I day traded a couple things today. Amazon, even call spreads. Call spreads I was able to make some money. We put on a nice. So where to go next? Let me talk a little bit about the index charts. I'll talk about our BABA trade today that we put on. But yeah, I mean, this is just moving very, very fast. So I continue to kind of. Oh, if you wanted to see this, I'm going to bounce around a lot because there's a lot of thoughts going on in my head. This is not, of course, I wouldn't take this too much. Um, believe too much into this. I still think you kind of have to take every day, just take, sorry, let me start over. Take things one day at a time, given the amount of volatility that we're getting intraday, and just trade accordingly. Be open to shorting, be open to going long, whatever the price does. Once the price breaks out of range, uh, I think it makes sense to try to follow it and put on some trades. So this was the last time that the Qs moved up this much. This was 310.09. It's nice because Bloomberg allows you to do this, but it actually ended up being a really strong week after that. Now the majority of gains were that day, but you got some nice follow through. But you put that into the context of the market. Keep in mind, today, as one of my colleagues, MQ said today, this felt like a big, a bear market rally. And I remember trading back here in 2008 and 2009. Look at the rips that happened before we made this bottom. So I'm not going to speculate if the 24th was if the low is in. It's not really my job to kind of pick the lows, pick the bottoms, and to kind of speculate like that. We'll just watch there's plenty of money to be made just following the price action. But looking back at 2008, sure, there were some big bear market rallies. This was a 15% rally. This is approximate, by the way. I just kind of threw in a couple um, a couple different percentage changes from lows to the highs. This one was 20%. Notice we didn't make the low to down, till later, but plenty of trading opportunities. Here's another one which you can't see in here, but up 17% from where we marked a low. So, I would not personally, again, this video is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations, but just follow the price, and follow it, as long as it does. Make sure that you're taking. What I did is taking targets. I put on a BABA trade today. I was taking the majority of it off today, and then leaving a runner on. That's the best way I can. Especially it's a short-term trade too. So, greed is can be a big. Nuisance to traders. So take today for what it is. It was a huge day, and I hope if you capitalized on it, congratulations. Certainly did today in the trading room. Had to sit through some pain. Monday was horrible for some of the positions that I had on, even though I'm not carrying. I'll be, I'm not going to be one of those people on Twitter that gets all excited. I mean, I really have not been carrying that much risk. It's just too volatile. But as the reason why I'm going through this exercise is just to show that you don't need to be a hero and try to figure out what we're going to do from one day to the next. There's plenty of things to do. If you're just setting up for the day and are okay with either playing things to the upside or to the downside. Okay, so I think I've talked a lot about that one. Things that went on today that we thought were constructive. I put this together later. I saw the story from Bloomberg that insider buying surges to an 8-year high as stock market nears. I got this from Bloomberg. I didn't see them put this out, but this was, if you subscribe to the Bloomberg terminal, this was something that they put out. But this kind of kind of just gave a little confidence to kind of go a little bit, to kind of add to some positions, even in the strength today. Big move in the insider buying selling ratio. So that's a good sign to see insiders buying, right? I mean, we've certainly seen in the months past some insider selling. So now they're taking advantage, and they're the ones who are buying the dip. The other thing that we talked about today was the option activity. Just had a different feel to it. Even I said this today at 1:55 because I do a little midday recap, and I said that it had a different tone today. And you could see all the buying that happened today. There was a lot of things going on. There's a couple, the BABA, there was repeat BABA calls today. That got me in. I said, you know what, that's enough. We looked at BABA pre-market. And this is for as much as I badmouth option activity because a lot of times it does not work. But if people keep going after something and after it and after it, and the chart looks good to me, and you do your homework, then it sets up for a nice setup. So that's something that we sent out. After I saw the first trade, sometimes I skip the first one that I see, and we saw some January 4th, so not this week, but next week's calls. We saw some calls go up for about 45 cents. A couple of traders took those right off the bat in the room because for 45 cents it looked pretty decent. But then we also saw subsequent trades. The one that caught my eye as well after the next week's calls was a pretty nice looking call spread. This was actually the one I think that caught our eye. This was at 10:40 in the morning. We go over this. We went over the chart at 9 o'clock in the morning. But there was a really nice call spread in here too. I think it was this one. This was one that we put out on the private Twitter feed. I think it was the February one. I have it on the private Twitter feed. But yeah, I mean, I decided to do the same. February 145, 160 call spread. So I managed to put that on for about 296 and was taking targets on that throughout the afternoon. And then, I can always add that back. People forget. But yeah, I mean, this was just crazy how this picked up at the end of the day. So let's review a couple of these charts for the day as we're waiting for Bloomberg to come up. But here was where we went from low to high, and I mean, I added this trade. I just thought it was enough is enough. But look at this acceleration that we saw, and we saw this with a number of other stocks. Google, which I've also been long. Again, not a huge piece, but the calls, some of the turnaround of the value of options from Monday to today. Just one trading day, unbelievable. Some names that were basically almost throwaways came all the way back and back to life. So, what to do kind of going forward, even if you don't have a lot of exposure, and trust me, I do not. I keep saying the same thing, but I do not have a ton of exposure. Google is now back in this range. It retook the 20-day moving average. So just ratchet your stops down, use a particular level. I like this chart as well. So I'll walk you through a trade that I just put on today. WB, I put on this, I don't usually like adding trades in strength, but given what we've been doing lately and the oversold levels, which again, we went over pre-market. I think the IWM ETF was a 19, it was an 18.9 RSI going into today. I'll bring up that chart in a second, but yeah, I mean, I've got my defined low. This is the December low. And just recapture the 50-day moving average. I like the risk to return in this one. A name that's been beaten up for a while, that's kind of been basing, and I know exactly where to get out of it. This was another trade that we put on last week. Again, not a huge trade. I only put on 50 shares of this thing because I know it can move. And my stop, I almost got stopped out of it. Stop was the top of value. And look at this thing, up 8.5% today. Tesla was a huge order today. I also day traded. Today was a very active day for me to trade because I thought the opportunity was there. But Tesla was up 10%. I had to jump out in the afternoon, and I took this trade off, and I missed this last leg up. But this was a trade that I made a lot of money on, in just a couple hours. So. But wow, what a leg up, what a leg higher this thing. Then they went after next week's calls in Tesla, which was a huge order. And I don't trade Tesla. It's not a name that I normally trade a lot. So for me to jump into Tesla calls, there's got to be something really unusual that goes on. But look at this order that went up. This was also next week's call. It's $1 million order. There was Microsoft that went up. So again, very different feel. There was some risk taking going on today. And we go over all these. I try to give as much color as these trades hit the tape. But that was one that I was like, wow, that's another big one. This was a $1.5 million trade as well for next week. Look at how short term. It's crazy. There was also a couple Qs orders that were very large. There was a huge call spread in the Qs. There was a small NVIDIA trade that went up. There was a big CRM trade. Now I have to check open interest on this one. But look at the Salesforce trade. This was swept. This was a little bit further out. Again, look at the size, $2 million in premium. So again, I'll check this one because there is open interest of 3,100 contracts in there. But again, it went up above ask, and to me, it looked like it was bought. So, now's a great time. For me, I will spend probably a good chunk of time tonight going over the charts because there's going to be a lot of things to look at. Salesforce is back in value. So, what would I do in Salesforce considering it's below the 200? If I wanted to participate, I would use the bottom of value as your stop, which is 127. A couple bucks down. Just keep it simple. The more that you could do that and not overcomplicate things. Again, there is so much noise. I do like Twitter. I think people are putting out who the real good followers are. They put out really great content, but there's a lot of noise that you got to get through too. It's the same thing when watching financial media. There's just a ton of noise, and it's best to just kind of simplify things as much as possible. All right, so that's a couple trades that we looked at, but yeah, there was definitely a different tone to the option activity. But again, most of it very short term. So you kind of have to think about that. Maybe if this is, who knows if the lows are in, but kind of take it one day at a time, as I tried to express that earlier, and I couldn't exactly spit it out. But that's it. You don't have to figure this whole thing out today or this week, but just trade where the opportunities are available to you. So by the way, I will mention that we do run a special at Tribeca Trade Group if you're interested, just to kind of even if you're not a full-time trader, which we have that all day every day. Again, this is why I love trading. You come in the day after Christmas, and this is what you get. But that's how it works sometimes. But we do run a special. It's $7.99 for the first week, so you could check us out. We go over as many charts as possible in the pre-market session to kind of get you ready for the day. But that's how you can participate and be a member at the Tribeca Trade Group. So check us out, tribecatradegroup.com. Thanks for watching the video. Have a great night, everybody.